Radio Retro Future.
Good day, ladies and gentlemen, this is Bonzard of Radio Retro Future, and welcome to a new episode of Steampunkish. I've been watching the Netflix special Drifting Dragons, a anime adaptation of the manga of the same name by Taku Karabara, which has been serialized by a magazine called Good Afternoon since 2016 and is still ongoing. The basic premise of this fantasy show is about a girl named Takida who joins a Draker ship because he is indebted. Drakers are people who hunt dragons in the sky from zeppelins, in a fantasy world that is loosely based on the 1900s. Basically, they are depicted as whalers in the skies, so they have things like bomb lances, harpoon guns, and other simple rifled weapons. We also see other technology like machine guns and ornithopters come by. The dragons themselves are not your usual fantasy fare, however. They are depicted more like, I guess the closest approximation is that of a flying octopi or flying whale with some dragon-like characteristics. They come in all various forms and sizes, and some of them display interesting characteristics. And because it's about a show hunting dragons, it also goes into all the various resources they can gather from the dragons, like they can use the bones for armor, the oil for fuel, etc, etc. So these dragons are very important to this world's economy. Unfortunately, it is not very fleshed out. Despite the show mentioning that this is only done for like half a century now, it's never described what the world was like before this resource was discovered. As a matter of fact, one of the problems with this series that I have, that very little actually gets fleshed out. Instead, the show tends to go on tangents on how to prepare dragon meat, and how the various cultures butcher and prepare the dragons. Now, this is all nice and good, but I am not interested in the preparation of non-existent animal meat. So maybe this is a metaphor for how to prepare whale meat? I don't know. Suffice to say, if you're not into food preparation like I am, I don't think this is the show for you. In that regard, the show is more about food than it is about anything else. Now, when I watch a show, I like a show to have a point, and I couldn't tell you what the point of this narrative is. The characters will often make obscure statements as though they have come to realize something, but they leave you guessing what that is. Most episodes are self-contained stories about the crew of the ship. Unfortunately, I would not be able to tell them apart, except for those characters who have been reduced to their traits. One of the major characters, Mika, is always hungry and therefore likes to hunt dragons, so he can eat them. That is about as much characterization that he gets. Another character is really good at drawing, another one takes himself too serious, and beyond that I wouldn't be able to tell you what these characters are beyond their role on the ship. The engineer is always complaining that their ship is being abused, the captain gets insecure whenever somebody tells them other ships are more impressive, the accountant is always concerned about money, and the main protagonist, Takida, is not that impressive of a character either. All we know is he joins the crew because he is indebted. Why is he indebted? No idea. And the rest of the stories is just her learning how to be a Draker. During the course of the episodes, we hear other crew members mention that somehow she has affected the crew greatly in some way, but we're never shown how. How or why, just that in the final episode they really want to find her once she has fallen off the ship. All the show seems to say is that there is supposed to be a order to things. Drakers hunt dragons, and that's really about it. So I was really confused when the show all of a sudden decided that Mika had to care for a baby dragon. Unlike most shows that I have talked about, there really is a lack of a central theme, or if there is a central theme, it's really poorly fleshed out. Maybe all of this is more clarified in the manga, but here the show doesn't have a proper focus. At first glance, it's a typical slice of life show where we see the daily troubles of the crew. They're worried about money, they are talking about food, they're talking on how to prepare food, and then they talk about whaling, and I'm just unclear on what the show is supposed to be about. Apart from the world building in the earlier episodes, you can watch any of these episodes out of order, because there is very little in the way of character development. The crew are facing a problem and they resolve it. Sure, Takida starts out as a rookie Draker who is more experienced by the end, but that's pretty much it. There is no inner conflict with her or any conflicts with members of the crew. And when a character has doubts about what she's doing on board the ship, this is often resolved in 1 or 2 episodes. As for the visuals of the show itself, it's really bland. The CGI is passable, the animation is meh. The cinematography is uninspired, and the fights themselves are not that interesting. For a show with dragons with fantastical abilities, I expected a lot more shonen-like action. Now, I'm not a big fan of fantasy to begin with, but I'll take a schlocky show like Goblin Slayer over this any day. I'm not saying that this show is bad, on the contrary, I think it's okay. But still, an action-like show like Goblin Slayer still has a very clear identity and knows what it wants to be. A deconstruction of old fantasy tropes, where each fantasy character is intentionally reduced to their function. Like Archer is just Archer, the Goblin Slayer is just the Goblin Slayer, etc. I thought the characters in this show to be okay, but not very interesting. They have no clear goals, no clear conflicts that need to be resolved, no ambitions that they are striving for that causes conflict between the various crew members. But at least they're not annoying. I haven't read the manga, so I couldn't tell you if this is carried over or not. But this entire show feels really cheap. The world building, the storytelling, the characters, even the music all feel very rushed and uninspired. As if it was produced only to fill up hours on Netflix's streaming service. And that is really all I have to say about the series up to now. It's a typical slice of life show with very little of substance. It does not have the intricate world building of Last Exile, nor does it have the internal struggles of Violet Evergarden. So my final verdict for the show is, if you're looking for a slice of life show that talks about preparing dragon meat, this might just be the show for you. But if you're looking for an intriguing high concept fantasy or science fiction show, or high stakes character drama, you're not missing out by not watching this. So yeah, this was nothing like my usual stuff. I hope you enjoyed it regardless. Let me know your thoughts on Drifting Dragons. And if you read the manga, let me know if this was a faithful adaptation or not. I hope to get working on higher quality content soon. However, I've got a lot of things going on right now. And I'm also working on other projects. The next video will probably be on our second channel and will be a SCP video. And then, of course, a special thank you to all of my patrons, like Steamy Wonders and Bowlerhead Tom. Thank you so much for your support. And as always, make things your way.